Hi, I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, and this is Think Like an Acrobat, a series where we reveal pro tips and secrets about the circus business, things we usually don't teach beyond our limited circus circles. We want this series to talk about the secrets of our industry that will enlighten your experience as a performing artist in the most practical ways. On this episode of Think Like an Acrobat, I'm going to interview Nora Nikitin, a master costume designer for some of the top circus and entertainment companies in the world, who is going to teach you how to design for yourself, the art of the circus costume. Hi, Nora. Thank you so much for coming on to Think Like an Acrobat. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to speak to you. Nora, you are an award-winning master circus costume designer with decades of experience working for top companies such as Surf Dreams, Celebrity Cruise Lines, and Norwegian Cruise Lines. And today you're going to teach us how to design for ourselves, which is such an essential craft to have and understand as a circus artist, and in creating a bankable brand, because it's an important component of what sells in a circus act. To begin our master session, I wanted to ask you if you could please provide a basic, quick breakdown as a step-by-step or how to construct a costume for either male artist, female artist, or gender-neutral artist, or unisex costume.
I wanted to talk to you about like working with a circus costumer, because I don't feel like I'm going to teach somebody how to make a costume in like one interview. Like, you need to really find a person that you can work with who knows circus costuming. You yourself can go out and find pieces of costumes that you like, or maybe you sew and you can make a unitard. But I feel like it's really about working with a costume designer and having that person, you know, you work with a person from sketch to picking the fabrics to starting to put the costume together. Then you go into fittings and then you finish with the finished product. Some of my clients like to decorate their own costumes. So that's one part that circus performers can do, but I can't explain to you, like, from a circus performer standpoint, how to make your own costume for your own personal act, because that's not what I do. So it's more about working with a costume professional, and, you know, so that you get the vision that you want and your costume is functional for your act. Basically, when working with a performer to design a costume, usually with me, it starts with like an email or a phone call. And like this particular performer called me and said, I need some jumping stilt costumes for Mardi Gras. So first I start with a sketch. My sketches are sometimes rough, but they like get the point across. And then, you know, I go down into the little details, like they have the jumping stilts, and then he wanted a mask to match. And from there, basically I build the costume. And I send them a picture of the costume. It's just laid out on the bed right now. Just send them a picture of the costume so they know what they're getting when it gets there. And then they send me pictures back. They do fittings. Sometimes I do have virtual fittings with people because of COVID right now, or else people are just far away and I can't get to them. But usually I offer fittings and alterations with that fitting, with that particular costume. All comes together.
Costume making itself is a very elusive process, and knowing where to go for a costume is always a difficult thing unless you're lucky enough to work with a company that does it for you, or you have a go-to costume maker. And so with that being said, what are some resources, companies big or small, that artists can use to access costume making, and additionally while traveling, since so many of us are usually on the move?
Yes. Mostly, I have to say, my company is available for any kind of costuming. I do costumes from like Broadway productions all the way to just individual performers, like I showed you. That was for a theme park. I don't really know of so many other resources as far as costume companies, because I usually make everything myself when I'm doing costumes for people, or else I'll buy things from Amazon, as many performers would go on Amazon and find some stretchy pants, or like discountdance.com. They all ship all over the world. And then let's see, a good resource to have is a good fabric store, because sometimes people will go shopping for their own fabric and then send it to me and I make the costume from there. But as far as really outsourcing, I don't do so much of that. I mostly make things myself. So I'd like to share my website now, if that's okay. This is like kind of my blanket company, but I go into portfolio and you go to Cirque Designs, because Cirque Designs is my brand of circus costumes. So going to my website here, you can see all the different kinds of costumes that I've made for people over the years, whether it's individual performers or for certain shows. And then I also had the opportunity here to set up a display for my friend's lobby at the circus school. So I've done a few lobbies for them with different themes like New Year's and Mardi Gras. And just I really encourage performers to find pictures of what you like if you're working with a costume person. I mean, a costume designer or a costume maker, find like interesting pictures of things you like, and they can use those photos to really like get the idea for what kind of design you want. I feel like it's very important to be open and talk to the designer about things you really like. You need like communication, open communication both ways is really important, because sometimes the designer might get stuck and say, like myself, like sometimes I think, oh, maybe this isn't really what they want. Or somebody will say, like I had a client said, I want to do like a capri pant and like a little crop top shirt. And as you know, that's wide open. It's like, that can be anything. So I'm like, okay, I need a color. I need like some kind of fabric idea. Like, send me some pictures of what you like. So from there, I know, oh, okay, this is what she's looking for. She wants kind of like, you know, a little collared shirt with that like ties at the waist and like some little denim, like capri pants kind of thing.
What should an artist keep in mind when creating their own costumes from scratch? And what are the most cost-effective and high-quality tools and techniques to use? And do you have some recommended courses out there that can teach an artist how it can be done?
I think the most important resource would be the fabric store. You need to start at the fabric store and find good quality fabrics that you like. And of course, depending on what your act is, you need to have stretchy fabrics. Mostly, like most circus performers, like aerialists, need fabrics that stretch, or contortionists need fabrics that stretch with their bodies. This is a fabric store in Miami, which is one of my favorite places to go shopping. Like, they have all the stretchy fabrics. They also have some non-stretchy fabrics. But as you see, they have like a plethora of interesting prints and colors. It's like a little trip. It's like the store is massive. Like a little bit of heaven there at the fabric store. But it's really important to have good quality fabrics, because you don't want your fabric to stretch out beyond compare. This was another thing is the rhinestone. I'll give a couple of sources for rhinestones in a few minutes. Basically, sources when you're trying to find things for your own costume, it's really go to the fabric store, touch the fabrics, feel the fabrics, make sure they're stretching enough for you. I order my rhinestones from a store called Fred Frankel and Sons. They do like all the Swarovski crystals, because nothing shines like a Swarovski crystal. Like, you can try the Czech stones, you can try the preciosas, like nothing does it like the Swarovskis. So like basically you have to have a business like account. Like if you have like your own LLC, or your name is like your business, you just open a business account with them, and the rhinestones are at warehouse prices. So that's a really good thing about buying there. But sometimes you do have to buy in bulk, which is okay, because we love rhinestones. But I'm trying to think. And there's a few other, like there's wallwalk.com is like where you can get a lot of trims, the quality elastic, like hooks and eyes and buttons and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, it really just depends on what kind of act you do for what kind of costume you need. There's always just going to Joann's Fabrics. Everybody loves Joann's Fabrics with the 50% off coupon. You can't beat it. But that's pretty much it.
I love Joann's.
Yes.
What is the average cost that an artist can expect to spend on a costume? Ballpark.
Ballpark would be, I would say, for a really experienced artist, like, you should expect to spend like basically one paycheck on your costume. If you're looking for a high quality costume, that's about how much it's going to cost like to get a really nice costume. And you have to think of it as an investment. because it's an investment in yourself. And if you're making a costume for yourself, that's for your look, for your music, like it's worth every penny.
When it comes to proper representation in costume making, what are key factors that costume makers should keep in mind, or techniques that they can use to ensure that a costume reflects an artist's body on all levels of inclusivity?
Well, it's really about communication. Like I said before, you really need to talk to the artist and go into fittings with an open mind, because sometimes you think, okay, it's going to look like this, it's going to be gorgeous on them, and then like the performer will put it on and they don't like the way their boobs look, or they don't like the way the costume fits around their hind parts, and like you can't get sensitive about it. It's like, okay, tell me how you would like it to look, and that's what I'm going to do. Like, it's really about communication back and forth between the artist and the costume designer.
What do you think of costume rentals, Nora? And do you know of any companies that do this well? And can you provide some non-negotiables for an artist to stick to when renting their costumes for production for a contract?
I don't really know of any companies that rent like performer costumes. Like, I own a few Broadway productions that I rent out, and also I also do like stilt costumes that I rent out, and like some like more like character costumes that I rent, as opposed to like the actual artist costume. Because like I said before, like your particular costume you want for your act needs to fit your body. It's not kind of like a general costume. So the best thing to do is, if you're working under a contract for somebody, you need to make sure you talk to them about your costume, work that into the contract. Like, and if they're not willing to pay for it, you need to, I can't tell everybody what to do, but like some sort of reimbursement or some provision should be made so that the performer can comfortably perform their act, but still maintain the look that the show needs to go with that music and like that theme of each individual show.
What do you think about purchasing costumes online to be prepared and then shipped based upon virtual communication? Do you recommend this? And what are some tips about how to do this properly so that you can get the costume that you paid for?
I do this all the time, like especially right now because of COVID. That's what I do. People call me, I send them a sketch to like on my phone, like take a picture of the sketch, send it out. Then we talk. It keeps saying it's like about communication with the designer. And you really have to, like, first of all, whoever's making your costume should send you progress pictures along the way. So if you don't like something, you should say something. If you do really like something, you should also say something, because the designer knows they're going in the right direction, and they want to make you happy is basically what it's all about. So like I said, it's about open communication and making sure that when you get the costume, you, in a timely manner, you need to try it on, and then set up some sort of virtual meeting with the person who made your costume. So you can do a virtual fitting. I've done plenty of virtual fittings. Like, we'll do like a FaceTime meeting in front of a mirror, of course, so I could see the back and the front and all different angles, and people will pinch and pin wherever they need things taken in and taken up, and then they send the costume back to me. I do the alteration, then I send it back out. They try it on again. Usually at that point it fits. But if not, then we do the process again.
Until it's perfect, right?
Until it's perfect.
Well, Nora, bad costuming can lead to an artist actually injuring themselves. We also know that wearing complicated costumes can be a big part of our job as an artist. And so what mistakes do companies tend to make when costuming circus artists that lead to unnecessary complications? And what are the solutions to protecting artists physically while in costume?
Well, I feel like a lot of companies are stuck on what they want the costume to look like and not necessarily thinking about the function of the costume, especially in particular aerialist costumes. I've seen a lot of aerialist costumes that either don't stretch, or they stretch in the wrong direction, or they've put things in places that, like, you can't twirl around a trapeze bar without getting stuck because there's flaps all over your costume or something like that. So as far as that is, like, people who are making costumes need to think of safety first when they're thinking of who they're making the costume for. I mean, you have to think about somebody juggling, or are they going to juggle between their legs? Okay, so they can't have a lot of pieces of fabric hanging down between their legs. Or like I said, like going around the trapeze bar, you can't have bunches of fabric around the waist. But it's just really something that needs to be taken into consideration when the costume is being designed.
How do backup costumes come into play for artists, and what do you recommend artists do to ensure some costume security?
Well, I know a lot of performers that bring their own costumes with them. Like if you have a few sets of costumes, even though it might not fit the theme of the show that you're doing, just make sure you bring them with you just in case, because you never know if the costume that's given to you either just completely won't work, or if like you could have a blowout in the middle of the show and have to wear your costume like for the next show or something like that. Like, so just have the backups there and available for you.
Adaptable costuming is something that I don't see enough of, but it's an issue I see a lot in the circus performing arts world. So how can artists efficiently give attention to creating costumes that can live in multiple performance spaces and cultures?
Oh, I think that would be a lot about having layers. Like some countries don't allow women to show their legs or their arms or like almost like any part of their body. So you should have, in case you're going there, you have a set of pants that can go on top of your leotard or your unitard, or you have a jacket that you can wear on top. I think it's really about having a little bit of flexibility within your own costume, and then having a couple of costume options, like maybe having a full bodysuit that resembles the like leotard style that you have in case you need it for like a children's show as opposed to like an adult more themed show.
Thank you, Nora, for teaching us how to think like an acrobat, because to think like an acrobat is to creatively craft a decorative vision of your artistic attributes that will increase the eager consumption of your performance. This is the AAA segment, or Ask an Acrobat portion of our show, where I answer questions that we didn't get to in the interview, questions that you can send into the show, and it's also my extra thoughts about the episode in general. Circus costuming and designing is such a difficult art and difficult thing to do, and you really have to be very good at it. And I've worked with costumers all over the world. You see, Nora has worked with artists all over the world, and it's a very specific thing. And costuming for circus artists has come a very long way. But I would say it still continues to be something that you have to put a lot of energy and effort into making sure that you have the right person developing and making your costumes. And if you're doing it on your own as a freelance artist, it can be difficult and it can be expensive, and it can be hard to maintain your costumes on your own. If you're lucky enough to be in a company that has people to manage your costumes, like Nora Nikitin, then you're very fortunate. Like, I mean, it is so great to have someone adapting and working in your costumes. Like when I worked for Cirque du Soleil, my costumes sometimes would break every single show, and they would redo my costumes every show. And if there's 2 shows a day, they would redo the costume twice. I mean, people don't really realize how much wear and tear our costumes go through because they're so specific. And there's so much wear and tear, and you use them so much in so many unique ways. And also too, costuming, like your costume is your brand. So like what Nora said, that's so important. Like your costume is everything. That's what people see. That's how you sell your act. People either like it or they don't. And it can be the thing that loses you a job, depending on what country and culture also too you're trying to perform in. And having costumes that are super adaptable is also very important, because when you're going to all these different places, everyone has different things that you can and cannot do. But again, back to costumes being your brand. Like, spend the money, take the time, do it right. I mean, your costume can be your act. There's some acts that are only so amazing because of their costuming. I mean, you take Quick Change, for example. That's always like a big one, in the secrets within that, which we didn't reveal those. People don't like to hear the secrets behind Quick Change. But very much so, I see, your act can, go the extra mile and get you more money because of the way that your costume looks and the way that it's presented. So if you want to be taken seriously, if you want people to take you in a certain way or take you in a certain light and help you to establish and create your character and your brand, invest in costuming. And, the simple things sometimes that people do are effective for the short term, but like Nora will tell you, they're not effective in the long run. I also too want to speak to the fact that there's so many people that do freelancing kind of like costuming too, and you can kind of get like pre-prepared costuming. I would, be careful about that and wary. There are things that happen that I know of that I've even had happen to me over the years where I thought that I was getting a costume that I had communicated with the costume maker about and gone back and forth quite a bit. And then they kind of scammed and sent a costume that was like already prepared and had nothing to do with any of the communication that we had. So, it can be a little bit tricky, especially now where there's so much available online. But I would still say the people that are quality, there's not that many of them out there. So if you're lucky enough to know of one, and now you know of one like Nora, Nikitin, because designers like her and people that have been in this business for decades that are the reason why you see all of those really interesting, cool costumes out there in the circus world. It's costume designers like her that created those costumes from scratch and, figured out how to put circus artists in all of these interesting, dynamic costumes and seeing what they are now. So ask an acrobat so that you can think like an acrobat. Here are the top 5 takeaways from Let's Design for Yourself, the art of the circus costume with master costumer Nora Nikitin. Number 1, have good communication with who's making your costumes. Number 2, the quality of your costume is really important and it's not just about what it looks like. Number 3, a production should know about your important costume needs before you enter into the show. Number 4, your costume needs to be functional for your act as a circus artist. And number 5, don't be afraid of the cost of the costume because it's an investment into your brand and business as an artist. Today, we learned how to design for ourselves from master circus costume designer Nora Nikitin. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode of Think Like an Acrobat.